This morning, we're at the Farmers Market in Hillcrest. This is one of San Diego's largest farmers markets. More than 110 vendors come here to sell hot foods and cold foods and prepared foods and fruits and vegetables and herbs and even seedlings you can plant in your garden.
Let me tally this up.
Okay.
Plants and the produce sold here are all grown locally.
Thank you.
While the farmers are here to sell what they grow, many are also great resources for learning how to grow your own favorite edibles. I can grow these in a pot, right? That's the best way to grow them.
That's the best way to grow mints, is put it in a container. Otherwise, they will take over your yard.
This is more than just a place to buy produce. It's a chance to meet the farmers and to see beautiful fruits and vegetables.
And where's the farm?
I love to chat while I shop, and I taste everything I can.
It's the Valencia, which is known as the juicing orange.
So what am I looking
These
at
are
here?
our clementine. We have just one tree at our farm.
And this is from one tree?
And that's one tree.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're delicious.
Oh, it's so good. Shopping the farmers market is shopping locally. It supports area farmers, and it saves the energy and resources used to ship food long distances. Eating seasonally means eating produce that's fresh and at its peak. The taste is incredible, and eating seasonally is really fun. The only thing better than eating produce from the farmers market would be picking and eating what you've grown in your own garden. They're doing what you would do if you knew how. So today we're going to learn from some of the best growers around how to build a raised bed, how to make your own fertilizer, how to plant seeds, and how to transplant seedlings. We're digging in and we're growing our own today on A Growing Passion. Starting vegetables from seed takes patience, along with some skill and some practice. Two of the best seed growers I know are Whitney and Sue Lynn Robinson of Whole Earth Acre. Whitney and Sue Lynn sell strong, healthy seedlings at local farmers markets. Starting with seedlings like these greatly improves your chances of gardening success. I stopped by the greenhouses to see Whitney and Sue Lynn in action. I love it when you get ready to go to market. What have you got?
I have cauliflower, Brussels sprout, 3 different kinds of kale.
How long ago did you start these seeds?
From the seed to this stage, anywhere from 3 to 4 months.
I'd love to see how you start the seeds. Can you show me?
Come on by, I'll show you my potting bench.
This is quite the collection, Sue Lynn. Are these all your seeds?
Oh no, I have a lot more.
Well, how about if you show us how to plant broccoli seeds?
Okay. And so we can put soil in the 4-inch pot, just like this. You fill it up with soil. Carefully sprinkle a few seeds in here. Just put a little bit of soil on top of it. You don't want to bury it too deep. And I'll get myself another pot, the same size, and I put it on top of it. Tamp it down gently so the soil and the seed will have a better contact. After that, the important thing is you must label it, because otherwise they all look the same. And I'll take it to the greenhouse and water it. And so you don't want to overwater it or underwater it, and keep an even moisture. That is very important. And too wet, the seedling will die off, or too dry, of course, they won't germinate. They move the pots inside the greenhouses where the seeds sprout. After 4 or 5 weeks, Sue Lynn moves them back outside. The Robinsons grow their seedlings under conditions very similar to real garden conditions, and intentionally so. These seedlings are not pumped up on fertilizer or coddled by heat. So when you plant them in your garden, they skip the transplant shock and hit the ground running. With Whitney and Sue Lynn Robinson's boutique approach, they start seeds, grow them into robust, high-quality seedlings, and sell them directly to home gardeners. On the national scene, there's a novel and exciting approach to creating vegetable plants that thrive even under the toughest conditions. I'll show you next. We're at Spring Trials in Vista, California. This is where the world's prominent plant breeders, propagators, growers, marketers, and other plant experts meet to buy and sell the latest and greatest new plants. It takes years, sometimes even decades of effort by dedicated breeders and nursery folks, observing, testing, and growing plants around the country, even around the world, to bring a single new variety to market.
Those new plants are introduced here at spring trials. Buyers contract here for plants you'll find in your local nursery next spring.
And the golden yellow kumquat's going to taste almost like a sun sugar, but not.
Sometimes what's showcased here isn't completely brand new, but rather something reborn or reinterpreted for a new market. That's the case with the mighty Mato. This is one of our little grafted tomatoes. Now, grafting has been around pretty much as long as people have been growing food. Usually, you do it with fruit trees. You find one tree that has fruit you really like, and another that has really good roots. Maybe they're really vigorous or they're resistant to some kind of disease. You cut them apart, switch them up, put them back together, and voila, you've got a grafted tree. Okay, not really that easy, but you get the picture. Grafted vegetables go all the way back to ancient China. About 25 years ago, European farmers started experimenting with grafting vegetables, especially tomatoes and eggplants, as a way to reduce pesticide and fertilizer use. Just a few years ago, Americans were introduced to mighty Mato, grafted tomatoes that seem to be taking the gardening world by storm. John Bagnasco of Supernatural Vegetables explains.
Nan, I think this is one of the most exciting things to hit the gardening industry in probably 30 years. And what it is basically is taking a disease-resistant rootstock and then grafting a great tasting variety onto it. And you know how great the heirloom tomatoes are for flavor. The flavors are fantastic, but unfortunately they've not been bred to resist soil diseases like verticillium wilt, fusarium blight, nematodes. But now by using a rootstock that's resistant to all those, we can graft an heirloom onto it, and anyone in the country can grow an heirloom anywhere.
For a home gardener, how does the cost of a grafted tomato compare to just buying a regular tomato seedling?
Well, some of it should be obvious because instead of one tomato, you have two. You have the rootstock and the scion, the top variety, so that's already double the cost. And then you have to have someone graft them, put them together, so you have labor involved. And then you have 2 weeks healing time, so that's 2 weeks longer production time for the plug. So all that adds up to the cost. But if you're guaranteed a minimum of double the crop, grafting's the way to go. There were over 1 billion tomatoes grafted worldwide last year, and the U.S. is just coming into that market.
So what is the history of grafted tomatoes?
Well, it's not that old. But in the U.S., way back to the early 1900s, Luther Burbank was really the first one to graft. He grafted a potato top onto a tomato rootstock. And it worked, but he realized this is totally worthless. So he reversed the graft and put the potatoes on the bottom and the tomatoes on the top, and then that did work. And we're still playing around with that because we think it's a fun thing to do. You know, can you imagine having one of those hanging basket tomatoes where you reach in the top and pull out a potato and the tomatoes are down below? But that's something for the future.
Now you're dreaming.
But dreaming is what got us to where we are today, right?
Caring for a grafted tomato is just the same as caring for any other tomato. The best part is that these plants are extremely vigorous. They produce so well that if you grow grafted tomatoes, you may need fewer plants to get just as many, if not more tomatoes than you ever have before.
The one thing you have to remember is not to plant the tomato deep. We've been taught our whole lives to bury tomatoes deep because they root all up and down the stem. But if you do that with a grafted tomato and you bury the graft, the top part will root, and now you have a conduit for disease to come up into the tomato. And we don't want that. So you plant the tomato just at the level it is when you buy it in the store, no deeper.
So it's just like any other plant.
Except then also don't buy your tomato cage at your local home improvement center. You need a big cage or a big stake because the plants are not only double the production but double the size.
What other vegetables are grafted?
Well, this year we've introduced grafted peppers and eggplant. And the eggplant responds to grafting the same way, even better than tomatoes. Still working with rootstocks. Even though we're selling grafted peppers, we only get about a 30% increase in production. We get all the disease resistance, but only 30% more peppers, and we're trying to increase that.
So I see cherries, I see plums, I see slicers. You got everything?
We do. We've got paste tomatoes. We've got new classes of tomatoes like the indigo tomatoes, which are coming out of Oregon State. And the exciting thing about it is it's loaded with anthocyanins, which are the same antioxidants that are in blueberries. It's now in a tomato. So besides the lycopene, you get these high anthocyanin levels, and you've got one of the healthiest plants on earth.
There are more than 36 varieties of mighty tomatoes sold at nurseries in San Diego County, in fact, across the U.S. and Canada. Their disease resistance, their vigor, and their delicious flavor might just change the way you grow vegetables. That's good. Next, we'll visit a home vegetable garden done on a big scale. Don't go away. There is no one way to set up a vegetable garden. It largely depends on what you like and what you have to start with. Evelyn Alamani and her husband Joe had an unused horse corral. They converted it into a series of raised beds where they garden year-round.
This is broccoli.
Oh, I love green broccoli, but that's purple broccoli.
This is purple broccoli.
Evelyn's garden is a little weather-beaten, but it still provides plenty of food. And at a time of year when most of us don't give much thought to growing vegetables.
There's onions, there's cauliflower, looks like a tomato.
I can see the head right there. You've got like 7 or 8 different kinds of things growing in one bed?
Right. Well, things grow on their own, and it's always a big surprise to see what comes up. A lot of things will self-seed. Even onions will just come up on their own. And I have a bed of raspberries that just appeared. I never planted them.
It's like your whole kitchen right here.
Completely undisciplined.
Undisciplined. Evelyn, how many years ago did you start this garden?
We started in 2001.
Talk to me a little bit about the mistakes you made in the beginning.
Well, the biggest mistake was making it so big.
Is that a big drain on your time? Is it really hard to take care of?
It's not hard to take care of at all because of the way we have it set up. It has automatic irrigation, we have really good soil, and we're very careful about weed control and things like that. So for me, vegetable gardening is 2 steps. You plant it, you eat it.
The ground under Evelyn's garden is solid granite. But plants need dirt to grow deep roots, so raised beds were a necessity. They used old railroad ties because they were cheap and they were available. But if they were to do it again, they'd probably use something else.
I would use something like tracks or vinyl fencing rails.
Why is that?
Because the railroad ties have creosote and that can get in the soil. So we ended up lining the beds before we filled them with soil.
And what about critter control? I know you have netting to keep birds off. What other issues do you have?
Well, the critter control starts at the ground level.
Hardware cloth lines the bottom of Evelyn's beds to keep hungry gophers out. Netting keeps birds and squirrels from eating her tender seedlings. And the rabbits, they'd eat everything if they could get past the chicken wire that lines the fence. So we got gophers, rabbits, birds, and squirrels.
Exactly.
And it doesn't take that much work.
It's not that bad.
Now you got 8 years of experience. I'm sure you don't do everything the same way you did it initially. What do you do differently now?
One of the smart things that we did when we laid out the irrigation is we put a shut-off valve in each bed. So it's really easy to turn off the water and just let a bed be dormant. And that's really a good thing with crop rotation. You let the soil rest. You can put in soil amendments for a while. Just let that bed rest for a year and then plant it again and take another bed out of use.
So the cauliflower is ready, and I noticed the peas were ready and the strawberries, and it all looks so delicious. Can I invite myself over for lunch?
Absolutely, but you have to help cook.
I am happy to do that. Let's go eat.
Okay.
It's winter. I didn't plant a winter vegetable garden this year because I knew I had to update my garden. About 15 years ago, we built a whole series of raised beds out of redwood. But you know, nothing lasts forever. Redwood worked so great, we're going to do it again. And in fact, today what we're going to show you is how to build raised beds out of redwood. When we were trying to figure out where to put the vegetable garden, there were several things we kept in mind. For one thing, we needed full sun. Full sun's really important to ripen tomatoes and squash and all those wonderful summer vegetables. We needed to make sure that the vegetable garden would be close enough to the kitchen that we actually came down here and picked the vegetables. We wanted to make sure there was a good source of water nearby. I don't want to drag a hose too far, otherwise my garden won't get watered. And finally, we needed a place where we could put a fence around the garden. At that point, our kids were really little. We needed to make sure that we kept out the bicycles and the balls and the big wheels, but we also need to keep out the four-legged critters like the bunnies. All those are important considerations when you're trying to figure out where to put your garden. Now, I'm really lucky because I have two great helpers, my husband Kurt and my stepson Gabe. This is a big project. Now, if you don't have great helpers like I do, it's not such a big deal. You can still make raised beds. You could just mound up the soil. You could hold it in place with bricks or blocks or stone or even pieces of broken concrete. But what's really important before you start is that you think ahead and you make yourself a plan. Here are the supplies you'll need. Lumber, something long-lasting like cedar or redwood. You'll need 4x4s and 2x6s in length to match your garden beds. Screws to hold the lumber in place. Hardware cloth to line the beds and keep out hungry, burrowing critters. You'll need tools like a table saw or power saw, power drill with a screwdriver bit, tape measure, gloves, and a couple of other tools. It's best to build your bed on a hard, flat surface. So, how many people does it take to move a raised bed once it's built? As many as you can find. This is a nice bed because it's about 18 inches high. That's a really comfortable height for me. And I had my husband and my stepson put a cap on it, which makes it comfortable for sitting and also putting my tools here. Now, it's really long, but it can be any length. It doesn't really matter. It's the width that's critical. For an adult, you want a bed to be not more than about 4 feet wide because you want to reach the center from either side. If you're gardening with kids, and it's great to garden with kids, you want a bed about 3 feet, maybe 3.5 feet wide. I want to point out one other thing. Look at the bottom. You see that wire mesh? That's 1/2-inch hardware cloth. Really, really important because that's what keeps hungry gophers out. You know, when it comes to seeds, just like everything else in life, you get what you pay for. This is one of my favorite companies. They put out collections of seeds. So I'm ready to start tomatoes, and in this one packet I have 3 different kinds. What's great about these seed packets is how much information they provide. If I look on the back, there's a flap here that describes every kind of tomato inside this packet. And then underneath it tells me how to start the seeds, how to grow them, how to harvest them, and how to enjoy them. The most important part is right here up along the edge. It tells me what time of year to start those seeds indoors. That means I have to start them in pots. How long until I can expect them to sprout? How long until I can plant them outdoors in my garden? What height they're going to get when they're mature, and that's important with tomatoes because I have to give them support. And then how long from the time I plant them until the time that they actually produce. In this case, about 3 months from the time I start seeds. If you want good produce, you gotta have good seeds. My beds are done, and we brought in soil. Now, you can't skimp on the soil because your vegetables are only going to be as healthy as your soil is good. I recommend a mixture of at least 30% organic matter. I had to bring it in by truck, and a bed this big took 3 yards. This bed took a lot of soil. I'm going to add worm castings to the soil, that's worm poop to most of us, and some organic vegetable fertilizer before I plant. One of the biggest advantages of raised beds is the control you have over the soil. You can add as much organic matter and fertilizer as you like. It won't wash away. And because you do all your gardening from the path, you don't step into the beds. The soil stays fluffy and loose, which is much better for tender plant roots. Well, that's done. Now I get to plant. Vegetables are hungry feeders. No matter how good your soil is, you'll need to fertilize throughout the growing season. And if you've grown plants in traditional rows, you'll be surprised at how much more densely you can plant a raised bed. This may look like a lot of work, but I'm going to have vegetables now winter through summer. And I can't wait to have this little guy decorating one of my salads. I'm at the home and garden of one of San Diego's most famous artists. This is James Hubbell's property, high in the backcountry near Julian. The area around the building here is mostly natives, but there's a good-sized vegetable garden that feeds the Hubbells, their family, and their friends. So I'm wondering why you have a vegetable garden.
Well, because we eat vegetables.
Okay.
But that's not the only reason. You have the buildings, and you have nature. The garden is a place where people tinker with nature, but they don't tinker all the way. The garden kind of acts as a bridge between us as humans, who often feel separated from things in nature, which is pretty about as healthy as it gets.
We have the help of a group of urban farmers who brought along their tools and their strong backs. We're turning the garden beds to loosen up the soil. We're repairing irrigation lines and planting cool weather crops. In the process, we're mixing in compost and other amendments deep into the beds where plant roots will reach. It's a big project, so good tools are a must, and a willing set of hands. The Hubbell's garden is organic, and it's planted 3 seasons of the year, so amending soil is an ongoing process. Today, we're adding organic fertilizer custom mixed by Andrea Carter, the Hubbell's gardener. Andrea, tell me what you have in here.
Well, this is some freshly made, complete organic fertilizer. This is something that you can buy at the store, but it's much more cost effective to make it yourself.
So what are the ingredients?
What we have in this one is some alfalfa meal to start. It'll give it some nitrogen up front, and it'll also slowly release over time. Then we have these beautiful little oyster shells, ground oyster shells. This is for releasing calcium and other minerals in the soil. And then we also have some rice hulls in here.
And what do the rice hulls do?
The rice hulls are to add a little bit of organic matter to fluff it up a little bit, so that will add back what is breaking down over time. And then the final thing that we have in here is bone meal, which we had left over in our shed. Normally, sometimes that's hard to find, so you can substitute a fish meal or something of that nature, but that is the most basic recipes.
So how do you know how much of this to use in a hole when you plant?
You might want to use a cup per square foot, or when you're planting your starts, you can just throw a little bit in the soil, maybe a little handful, or if it's a tiny little seed, you can, when you plant your row, you can just dust it along in the soil. Unlike a lot of liquid fertilizers that have super high concentrations of readily available nitrogen, this does not, and it's hard to burn out plants, so it's hard to overdo it.
So what is the difference between compost and fertilizer?
This is powdery, and if you let it go in the wind, it blows away. Compost will be thick, almost like a wrung out sponge, wet, nice soil. So the whole structure of it is different.
So in my vegetable garden, I want a combination of compost to build the soil and fertilizer to feed the plants, right?
Yeah.
Readying beds is hard work, but you hardly notice in this setting. New friends, gorgeous views, and a reward for which Julian is famous. Julian apples, fresh, pressed into cider.
Oh, baby, look at that. We got cider. Oh my. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. Nissan, anybody?
Nissan Altima, yeah.
That is so good. After a long day working in the garden, there's nothing better than being with good friends, enjoying the setting, and enjoying the fruits, or maybe the juices of our labor. Good work, everybody. Cheers!